All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Vet and the Tech. I am Nerdy Vet 574, also known as Greg, with my co-host here, Travis, the Indiana Salone. And we had a very interesting week last week with the finale of The Mandalorian. But of course, before we get into that, we always want to give our thanks and shout outs to our sponsors. And that's obviously the hashtag show, where you can follow Travis and my work and many others there at the hashtagshow.com. And our friends over at TRG Toys and Collectibles. Check them out, trgtoys.com. From Star Wars to, Marvel, you name it, they got it. So check them out, trgtoys.com. So obviously, Travis, we had a pretty big week last week. We had the season finale of season 3 of The Mandalorian. I know a lot of us were kind of shocked with the finale. I'll get into my feelings here a little bit about it as well. But it was very interesting, and at the same time, to me, it kind of left me still hungry for more. But we'll get in there. But let's talk a little bit about what transpired and what we got to everything. So going into this, we already know that there were some spies amongst the ranks of the New Republic and of possibly the Mandalorians, which we'll get into that again during this episode as well. Going into that and then starting off, it was kind of like there was no gap. You didn't have like that kind of, little thing. We went right into the action there. And, we see, Mando, he's being carted off with two of the new Dark Troopers. And right there, we kind of knew it was already, an uneven for those Dark Troopers with Mando there. So were you kind of expecting the way this started out, the way it did in the action and how quickly everything intensified?
Yeah,
It's kind of,
when the Star Wars intro with the neon lights, the red and the blue and the helmets and the stuff, the intro, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's Bo-Katan. Like right through the tunnels, I was like, okay, cool. We're just picking like literally right up when the last episode essentially ended. I was pretty surprised, not disappointed in it because there's a lot of really cool action that came from it. But I was a little surprised how quickly Din Djarin got out of his predicament with being captured.
yeah.
Like he was 2-on-1. So I guess he likes those odds. Like he says. So I was a little surprised on that. I guess I was okay with it though, because it definitely then sort of set the stage. Like, hey, we're ramping up the action here. And then as soon as he got, free, he's like, hey, I'm not done here. I'm going after Moff Gideon. I'm not just leaving with the rest of the Mandalorians. I've got unfinished business. Like, okay, now he's a man on a mission, kind of back to his old like bounty hunter, bounty target sort of days where, hey, I'm coming for you. So that was that.
Yeah.
That was cool. It gave me a little sigh of relief too, because I'll admit, coming into this episode, I was pretty nervous about how anything was going to happen. What a lot of speculation. This person's going to die. That person's going to die. I was just like, oh man, this could go bad. But it definitely picked up the action right away, which was cool.
Yeah, the rumors were crazy for this one because you had everybody from Bo-Katan to Mando dying. We already knew that Grogu wasn't going to kick it yet. So that's what I thought was pretty interesting about this too, leading up into this, and we finally see what I'm getting ready to say here soon. But we have Grogu, this little Mandalorian Force user, and during this time, he really never was using it. It was kind of like, was he scared to use it? Did he not want to use it? Did he see him turn himself to the dark side? Did he get enough training where he understood that? And it was kind of confusing me a little bit because I really thought the end of, the episode before this one, he could have done something with hold the door open, saving his buddy, everything there. But he did go after it and redeem himself a little bit, and his little IG-12 suit gets ruined and everything there. But it was just, to me, that was kind of shocking to me. Now, I really thought we were going on the path of, and I knew it probably wasn't going to happen now, but I think it's still going to happen later, that there was a possibility Mando was going to die. That was one of the things that I thought could possibly see, because we are branching into a big movie coming up with the Mandoverse. We've got Ahsoka coming up, and we know Rey in the future is going to be bringing back the Jedi Order. And we've got this little Grogu guy here that, knows the Force. Could he be getting pushed that way, especially if something happens to Mando? So, there's a lot of scenarios, a lot of what ifs, and I could go off to 5 different timelines if I really wanted to do this. But, but you're right. We already kind of knew that Mando was going to get loose somehow, especially when he only
Mhm.
walks away with two of those dark troopers. Um, but how cool did they look? I mean, I can't get over how cool it looked with this Mandalorian battle. It kind of took me back to
Mhm.
Clone Wars, and it was just very exciting to see, these fights going on. And honestly, I mean, I don't know about you, but I thought this was some of the best fight scenes that we've ever gotten in Star Wars because you had all these Mandalorians flying all over the place, killing
Mhm.
each other, shooting each other, and it was just it looked good. It didn't seem fake, and that's what was
Yeah.
really nice about
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, Mando basically did his, John Wick impression throughout the tunnels of that hidden Imperial base. But yeah, I mean, the choreography, the fights that we don't get. I mean, you get if we call lightsaber duels hand-to-hand combat. I mean, I guess technically because they're melee weapons, it's sort of hand-to-hand combat, but not this style of combat where it's like the Mandalorian's using like a knife. He's taking them down, picking up their weapons, using them against them, like fighting them with.
it.
The scene was really cool with the deflector shields that R5 had to open up as he went down the line. He fight them like two at a time, like structuring it out. So I mean, it was a really cool fight scenes, well done. Everything looked really good, and definitely, I mean, some of the best, yeah, like you said, some of the best action scenes and fight scenes we've had in Star Wars in a really long time. I mean, there's a couple cool fights, like in season one where he rescues Grogu and fights kind of stormtroopers
Yeah,
escaping. That was a cool scene. Each season has kind of its main cool fight scene. Obviously, the dark saber Beskar spear fight from season two was probably the
yeah.
highlight from that season. But yeah, this one was probably, yeah, I mean, probably the best one probably so far from the series, I think.
What I really liked about this episode was how I will say they threw us the rope a dope on this one. If you're a Muhammad Ali fan, you know what the rope a dope is. But they really did. They threw us the rope a dope, and what happened here is, we're this whole time we thought this was gearing up to the clones of Snoke.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that was leading up to, we all were believing that, hey, this is leading up to the prequels. Here it is. I mean the sequels. I'm sorry, and bam, we're going to see the connection there, which we got a little bit of the cloning connection, but who would have thought that he was trying to make an army of Moff Gideons, which I thought was very interesting. And of course, Mando destroyed that real quick. We didn't get really a lot of time to say hi to the little Moffs, but it was. I like how they kind of tied in the cloning aspect, but went a
Mm-hmm.
completely different route than what we were expecting. Um, and that leads me to another thing, which I'm going to get into here in a little bit. But I mean, were you expecting that? Were you like ready to see, Moff Gideons in those
Yeah,
little Bacta tanks?
yeah, that was definitely a surprise when zoom in on the cloning tank and there's old Moff Gideon, Giancarlo's face popping up so yeah, I was definitely not expecting Moff Gideon's master plan to be essentially cloning him, but trying to make himself also force sensitive. That's kind of ties back to the reason why I wanted Grogu originally.
Yeah,
Now, all that being said, I mean, obviously, they reference, I think at the beginning of the previous episode, I'm losing track. Yeah, it was, yeah, the episode previously, which we haven't had a chance to talk about until this week, but the Project Necromancer thing that one of the Imperial warlord guys kind of refers to. So
yeah,
I don't know if that's hinting at the Snoke Palpatine cloning, back from the dead necromancer project. So there's definitely more to come, probably in the whole
yeah.
cloning aspect. We haven't really talked much about Bad Batch season two this year at all, really, but obviously there's a big cloning thing there with the big cloning facility. So it's definitely seems to be a lot of clone heavy stuff that's happening out there in the new content.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting way that things are going, and with the Bad Batch, and most people know me. I just wasn't really a big fan of this season's, but they definitely threw that little twist because now we got another tree in the Boba Fett family with a sister. It looks like for Omega, but again, that's another topic, another time on there. But yeah, with the cloning and everything, this was pretty cool. Plus, you know, the episode before this Mandalorian one was called The Spies.
Hmm.
Now we obviously know who the one spy is with the New Republic, and I always forget her new character name, and I'm so sorry.
Ella, it's
We'll just
it's
do comm
Ella,
officer,
it's Ella
played
Kane,
by
isn't it?
Katie O'Brien. But it's the it was the who is the other spy? Was there another spy? Was that also to mislead us? What else is there? Because there's a reason why the episode was called The Spies and it was plural, but we really don't get that answer in this season finale. I mean, unless I missed it somewhere, because everybody who you thought was going to be the spy all turned out to play a helping hand in pretty much restoring Mandalore.
Yeah, that was yeah. Obviously, you've got Ella Kane is the spy for sure. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was just one of those the audience and the fans read way too much into it being the spies and not necessarily being multiple ones because yeah, I mean one of the funnest things I had to do during that week in between was just all of the speculation and rumors and the social media was going crazy like, oh, I think the spy's actually Din Djarin. He's working with Moff Gideon for
Yeah.
this, or the armor. Oh, it's Axe Woves. Oh no, it's like it was. I mean, there's just all these all these ideas. And it's just kind of funny to see how like zero of them were true. Everybody was wrong about everything, which I guess
Yeah.
in a way is good. It means that it keeps the audience, it keeps the fans from knowing what's going to happen because everybody was wrong.
I mean,
Um,
every scenario out there could have worked, and that's what I liked about these rumors. Because these
mhm,
weren't like this far fetched that people were kind of pulling, like, "Oh, Ray's going to show up," and
right.
this it was like, "This is the spy on there." And real quick, I want to do a quick shout out to some of our viewers: Nikki, um, Andy, Philip. Thanks for watching tonight. Also, our Gamorrean guard Stevens here as well, watching tonight.
Hey,
Can't wait to see him down in Nashville here next month. But yeah, it's just like every scenario out there that could have been, everybody was just waiting for it. I'm like, oh, he's going up. Axel's going up to the ship now. This is where he's going to sabotage everything, or the armor's coming down and going to lay everybody out. Kind of the fleet out, and then she's going to get away. But all of that was wrong. So who knows what the episode? And if everybody who's watching, if you think you have an idea of who the spies are, please help us out here because we're still trying to figure this out. But I think what was really neat about this episode and what I have been waiting for ever since we've heard the word the Mandalorian was coming to Disney Plus was life with Mandalorians and Mandalore. Now,
mhm,
obviously, we are seeing the slow rebirth of Mandalore. We go in there where after they went into hiding for a little bit to kind of regroup themselves. And here's one of the concept art pieces from Disney.
mhm.
They were finding out that fields can grow on Mandalore. That she hasn't seen this outside before, and or inside the dome before, and how it's life kind of Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. Um, all exciting, and I know for me it's a little bit just because of being a huge Boba Fett fan, the Mandalorian armor, everything. But how exciting is this moment to where we're seeing a movie that's probably going to be really paced around the rebirth of Mandalore, and we still got that mythosaur out there somewhere that's kind of dangling around the water that good old Grogu
Mhm.
kind of connected with at the end as well. So
Yeah, I mean this episode, I'm sure we'll get into the ending and what it means and all that sort of stuff. But I mean this season really now that we have all the episodes to be able to kind of look back on it and take it in its totality. There's obviously still some highlights and lowlights. The Jack Black Lizzo episode still probably not one of my most favorite ones. Didn't add a lot to the overall series.
yeah,
But taking it again, kind of all in its context, I mean, this season as a whole, I guess, did a pretty good job. I think what it set out to do, which to your point is start showing how the Mandalorians start to set aside their differences, put aside their internal civil wars and things, and we don't like this group and we don't like that group, and just say, hey, we've got to come together, we've got to unite, we've got to go back to Mandalore and basically rebuild our entire culture and civilization and
yeah,
things. So I think it's put things in a very creatively interesting place moving forward. Like, hey, there could be more series or episodes or seasons around that. We've got what Din Djarin's doing with Grogu out there. There's lots
yeah,
of cool things that can go next, which to your earlier comment about this last episode and everything seems possible, so we don't know what's going to happen. What happens next with this series and the Mandoverse as a whole could go anywhere. So it's pretty cool and
yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, I just can't wait to see what's happening with what movie we're going into. Are we officially getting the season 4? Are we getting the season 2 of Book of Boba Fett, which we still don't
Hmm.
know yet. And we'll get into that here in a little bit in the show as well. But what I thought was really interesting, we talk about the rebirth of Mandalore. And to me, it could be a little symbolism to me, or we could see the rebuilding again of something. But we see him off again going at it with the dark saber. And I kind of have to laugh about this because we all know now the dark saber gets destroyed, and Moff Gideon's comment, Mandalorians, trinkets, but yeah, here's Moff Gideon in Mandalorian armor with weaponized and hydraulic stuff to crush everything, using the Mandalorian trinkets pretty much to
Hmm.
fight the Mandalorians. But we see the death of the dark saber.
Hmm.
So at the end of the episode, we see before Mando and Grogu take off, they look into the waters, and Grogu makes kind of like a force connection with the mythosaur. Now, again, we have no clue, where this mythosaur is going, where it's going, or if we're ever going to even see it again, or what. But do you think, and everybody who's watching, is that kind of the symbolism that the mythosaur is going to be helped with the new rise, and they're going to forget about the dark saber? Because we now know that, for one, with Mando's tribe or clan, the dark saber means nothing. They don't care about the story of the dark saber, whatever. But we know all the other Mandalorians do. I mean, what were your
Hmm.
thoughts on that? And like, just like, you
Yeah,
think we're going to
the
see? Is it going to focus kind of around the mythosaur, or are we going to see a rebuild of the dark saber?
Yeah, I mean the destruction of the dark saber definitely caught me off guard. Um, and I'm like, oh man, I'm glad I didn't buy the expensive Razor Crest right before the HasLab one, right before the Razor Crest got blown up. I was like, man, I'm glad I didn't invest in the expensive Force FX dark saber that's really cool because they're gonna destroy that next. But no, I mean I was really shocked to see that. But I do think it opens up an interesting kind of a step forward that we talked about for the Mandalorians moving forward as a group to say, hey, it's going forward now. It's more about your actions, what you do, our sort of brotherhood and coming together as a people, and less about who physically possesses a magic light sword that you hold in your hand. Like
Yeah,
it's almost like in order to move forward and progress into, you know, greener pastures, they need to kind of leave the past behind a little bit and say, hey, it's not about it. Whoever has the dark sabers in control. It's like, no,
yeah,
whoever's the best leader can bring the people together and we can move forward that way. So I do
yeah,
think it puts the Mandalorians in a better place. And it makes you think like, man, I kind of wish the dark saber had been destroyed hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and think how the Mandalorians could be now if they didn't keep holding on to this relic of the past of whoever has the dark saber by default is
yeah.
the ruler.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which direction they go with that, and how all the Mandalorian clans will react to the destruction. Because obviously these two clans, but there's more clans out there. We don't know who's all in hiding. We still know Sabine's family, as far as her family's still alive. We know there's a lot of other people out there, and who knows where Boba Fett's even going to play a role in this. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's wearing Mandalorian armor. You never know what we're going to see coming up here. But yeah, so we see that, we see the rebirth. The armor and Bo-Katan holding up the flame to light the forge again, and we see Mando adopt little Grogu there, and now Din Grogu, and that's I don't know. It's a way for Hasbro to market some more Black Series. Now they can change the name up on it.
Change the
Um,
packaging.
but it's just, it was kind of refreshing at the same, it had that feel good ending again, like the Book of Boba Fett did. It didn't have that like 80 end montage, where everyone's laughing at the end, but
Mm-hmm.
everything went the way that you would think a Disney movie would end.
Yeah.
I guess I'm always looking for that Empire Strikes Back ending
Well, that's what I
to
was saying.
where,
Like, yeah, I was getting ready to say that, like, not the, but I mean, outside of the Empire Strikes Back, I'm just trying to remember how the sequel. I mean, I guess the second in the sequel trilogy kind of ended on not necessarily a down note, but not a happy party note, because obviously kind of cloned. Well, the middle one has to end on kind of a not as happy note to
Yeah.
replicate what Empire did. But I mean, in general, I mean, A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, all the Star Wars things kind of do end with some sort of positive thing looking forward. You feel good about it. So, I was nervous and thought, hey, maybe this does end with some sort of terrible thing, like,
Yeah.
Din dying, or maybe he's still captured and getting taken away. I didn't think they probably would kill him because it just seemed like a bad marketing move to
Yeah,
kill
right
him,
now it would be, yeah.
especially when you announce the movie. And who better to kind of frontline a movie in a couple years than Pedro Pascal, who's becoming like this biggest thing in Hollywood at the moment. So you don't really want to get rid of him before your movie comes out. But
Mm.
yeah, so I mean, I do think they wrapped up a lot of the things, left it on a positive note. It was kind of a happy, not to your point, like the '80s high five sort of ending the Book of Boba Fett have, but it did end on a definitely a positive note. But I think it keeps fans like feeling good about it. They feel like they're happy. They're not depressed and sad. So it's not too surprising.
Yeah, it was just it was too happy. God, it doesn't sound bad that it was too happy for me.
It was too happy. You wanted to
You
you
know,
wanted to finish the episode and be sad and depressed for
well,
a,
not
a
really
year and a
sad,
half
but just
before.
knowing what our next step was going to be. Yeah, he's going to go back to bounty hunting, but like to me, it would have been more exciting if all of a sudden he goes, "Hey, I want to go back to bounty hunting." Then he gets on his iPhone and calls up Boba Fett, and be like, "Hey, you ready to start back up again?" And the next thing you
That's
know,
true.
they're
You,
working
you wanted
together.
you wanted you wanted like a little stinger at the
Yeah, I
end,
just wanted that
like.
little extra push to get me excited because there was really nothing that there was no after credit scene. Marvel has spoiled us for the rest of our lives. Just all of us now that watch Marvel movies and DC, like we were spoiled because we're always waiting for that after credit scene to show us what's happening next. And we didn't get that. And that to
Mhm.
me was like, I was like, wow, because I'm sitting there like, okay, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. Credits, credits, credits.
Yeah, I did sit around like waiting, like, okay, there's gonna be like a little stinger thing here at the end, like even something as simple as like um the captain, the X-wing cap or pilot, I can't remember his name now. I'm drawing a blank. Who seems to be
Yeah.
kind of like the guy rounding up even if he got something as like simple as like a message saying like, "Hey, there's an Imperial warlord on Tatooine, last seen around Mos Espa," or something to kind of
Yeah.
tease like, "Hey, Mando's going to be having me go to Tatooine now because that's what he's doing." And guess who's on Tatooine? Well, it's Boba Fett. I
Yeah.
do, and maybe we'll get into the future. I do wholly anticipate and expect that in season 4 of The Mandalorian, assuming it happens, I think John Favreau's already been on record saying they have scripts already done
Yeah.
for season 4. I definitely expect that's when Boba Fett and maybe some of the other characters from previous seasons that didn't make it into season 3 make a reappearance to help out Mando with hunting down some Imperial warlords.
And I have an article actually coming out tomorrow that's actually going to talk a little bit about where were some of the characters from the past seasons because it struck me kind of odd that we left some of these out. And no, Cara Dune's not one of them. We already know that situation. It's done. We're not talking about that anymore. But you had Boba Fett, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of weird. They didn't return the favor because they literally the Book of Boba Fett had Mando 2.5 in it. Like they took an episode and literally made it the Mandalorian during that. We didn't see Finnick. We didn't see Mayfield. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
see, Cobb Vanth. He's still probably pruning up in the back of the tank right now. We don't know what's going on, with these characters. And it was kind of shocking because these characters played a big role in the past seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I kind of always say, and people laugh when I say this, but Mando did get the Boba Fett treatment this season. He was kind of pushed to the side, and this season was all about Bo-Katan.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of caught me off guard that we didn't see some of these characters, and hopefully we'll see them in season 4, and maybe we'll get a Book of Boba Fett season 2 that they'll use to kind of redeem season 1 and no more flashbacks. But yeah, were you shocked? Was there any other characters you could think of that?
Yeah, I mean those. Yeah, I mean to me, I'd kind of forgotten about Miggs Mayfield, but yeah, I mean definitely Boba and Finnick. I really did expect because I knew there was from the trailer, I knew there was going to be a scene on Tatooine or an episode on Tatooine. So my logic said, hey, of course this is obvious when he's on Tatooine for whatever reason. At the time, I didn't know why I was going there, but okay, Pelimato's going to be there, and that's where he gets the droid. We saw in the trailer. Okay, he's going to run into Boba Fett and Cobb Vanth because, of course, they're characters they want to bring back and keep reminding people that they're out there. So I was pretty shocked when the visit to Tatooine was, I mean, a real quick, hey, can you get an IG-11 memory module? Hey,
Yeah,
Jawas, nope, too hard. Nope, okay, I'll take your droid instead, and then that's it. Like
yeah,
it was like a 30-second visit to Tatooine, so I was kind of surprised by that. I will say though, kind of in the hopes or potential for a Book of Boba Fett season 2. I mean, in a way, the way that season 3 ended with this, hey, I'm gonna go back to bounty hunting. Boba Fett's a bounty hunter. If they did do a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett, it could finally be the nudge to say, hey, Boba Fett needs to get out of Mos Espa and stop being, the
yeah.
ruler of a town and go back to doing bounty hunting stuff. Maybe he meets up with Mando to do a job together. They have a lot of potential now, I think, to bring Boba Fett back into the storyline in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm honestly, as a Boba Fett fan, I'm honestly good if they kind of just end his story. You know, the comics were great. I wish they could kind of incorporate those into a movie, but we're past a lot of the points in the comics now, and
Mm-hmm.
and now they kind of like they really just I don't know. To me, they just really killed the character. And I hate saying that being a Boba Fett fan, but people know I'm not a big fan of that first season. And when we first saw Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, I mean, he just took those stormtroopers like it was nothing. I mean, he just left and right, cracking their helmets open and just destroying everything. And I was like, man, we're going to see a kick-ass Boba Fett, here. And the next thing you know, we got peacekeeping Boba Fett that doesn't want to hurt anybody, and we get that whole season there. But yeah, that's getting me off to another tangent there. But let's talk about what we think is going to happen here. And for all you guys watching, I would love to know your opinion on this. So obviously, we're getting ready to roll into a Mandoverse movie and possibly a season 4 of The Mandalorian. Now, there are a lot of rumors out there, that Pedro's not happy, he's ready to leave, so on. He's tired of being Mando. And obviously, you can keep his helmet on, but how much can you keep his voice and everything like that? I'll get into my predictions here in a minute. But Travis and everybody else, I want to know, what are your thoughts on what we're going to get out of this Mandoverse movie? And on top of that, what would season 4 of The Mandalorian be? I mean, are we going to completely forget about Mando and go straight to Mandalore and Bo-Katan? I don't know. What do you think?
Oh man. So I'll start with let's start with season 4 of The Mandalorian. My expectation is, and I guess so here's my logic engine behind all of this. Several years ago, maybe it's 3 years ago, I think Investor Day, if I remember correctly, Kathleen Kennedy comes on stage. I think at that point, I think it was right after Book of Boba Fett had been revealed in a preview at the end of Mandalorian season 2. So they said, "Hey, Book of Boba Fett's a thing." I believe they teased Ahsoka potentially being a thing, and then they also mentioned a show that everybody maybe has forgotten about called Rangers of the New Republic. At that time, Kathleen Kennedy also made the comment, "This is all going to lead up to I think she used like event or crossover event or something kind of a la MCU Avengers individual things meeting up into a kind of a tie together movie."
Yeah.
So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking there was a purpose and a reason why they had Rangers of the New Republic as a thing, and it was part of the master plan. If you suddenly, because Gina Carano had her issues and Cara Dune is, axed from the series, you now take Rangers of the New Republic, that piece of the puzzle, out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now what do we do? The way Mandalorian season 3 ended with Mando talking to the X-Wing pilot, I wish I could remember his name. I just cannot remember his name, but ended with, hey, I want to start finding Imperial warlords. I want to start doing this sort of stuff, which is probably what the Rangers of the New Republic was going to be doing. So my expectation is Mandalorian season 4 does happen. Jon Favreau's already talked about having scripts done for it.
Yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy's already mentioned the Rangers of the New Republic storylines will probably get repurposed into other things. So I'm connecting all the dots here on my board and saying season 4 of The Mandalorian, yes, happens. May talk about some of the Mandalore stuff, but I think a big component of it's going to be Rangers of the New Republic, what it was going to do to introduce other Imperial things out there, maybe some new characters, hinting at some of the stuff with Thrawn potentially again,
Yeah.
things of that nature. That's where I see season 4 going, is basically Rangers of the New Republic re-engineered. I'm expecting Boba Fett to be involved. I'm thinking Cobb Vanth potentially gets involved in that particular season. So that's where my head's at least from a logic standpoint on season 4.
Yeah, and that's where like a lot of these like kind of end stuff is really, confused us a little bit, because obviously, they made a big deal showing Cobb Vanth in the back of the tank.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Boba Fett doesn't want to run, wants to be the Don anymore and wants to kind of just do his thing again. So yeah, I think season 4 to me is definitely going to be mostly about the rebirth of Mandalore. I think they're really going to kind of go on here how people are still going to try to keep. There's still going to be clans that are kind of against each other, and it's going to be kind of feel like the Rebels, Clone Wars kind of stuff, and kind of rebuilding, because I still think that episode Spy still involves somebody in this clan. I mean, I don't know what's going on with that, but I mean, the 3 big scenarios is the armor, one of the Night Owls, or I mean, how did those Mandalorians who've been going around that land boat not notice that there was a TIE fighter factory getting built on Mandalore? I mean, I don't know. To me, there's just so many scenarios out there that I don't know. I can't really do that. But I really think season 4, and they've already said that they're kind of turning more towards Bo-Katan for the Mandalorian than they were Mando. I mean, that was mentioned on that. So that's where I'm kind of going here. But the Mandoverse it's I like how we're calling it the Mandoverse now. It's going to be interesting because you have so much stuff tying in. I mean, we have Rebels, Ahsoka, the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett. We have all these characters, and we as fans, we kind of are stuck in a rock and a hard place, because we know what happens in the future. We know what happened in the past, and now we're filling in all these little gaps. And for us, it's like, how can we fill in these gaps for it to make sense? Where were all these characters when, Palpatine returned? Where was this? I know we've seen the ghost ship when all the ships show up in the Rise of Skywalker. You see some of the old ships and things like that. But at the same time, it's like, how do we, and what's this movie going to be about? I really think this Mando movie is going to be kind of like, to me, it's going to be kind of like the Rebels movie, because we're getting everybody kind of built back in together. Because obviously we're looking for Thrawn, we're looking for Ezra, Sabine's back, Ahsoka, Hera. We know that Rex, Hera fought in the Battle of Endor. We know that Zeb, we know he's around because he's back. He was at the bar. So we know we have these characters being, what's going on. Where are they leading? So this is where I'm going to go out, and I'm sorry, some of you guys are not going to like what you're going to hear next, but this is where I see some of this going. Is I really see them killing off Mando. I see him dying in either season 4 or in the movie. This is going to upset Grogu. No, I'm not saying Grogu is going to go to the dark side. What I'm thinking is, we know that Rey is coming back. Okay. There's this little image in Star Wars Rebels, and you can look at it. This is a long shot, people. Okay. I'm not betting the farm on this, but there's a little wall painting that shows a little small Yoda figure. It could be Yoda, it could be baby Yoda. And there's another Jedi right next to it, which actually kind of looks like Rey in a way. Now, is it a coincidence? Was this set up? Obviously, we don't know, but I'll bring that up on the next show. I'll bring that picture up so you guys can take a look at it. But I think that we're going to see Mando die, and Grogu is somehow going to team up with Ahsoka. Ahsoka is going to meet Rey in the future, because that's how maybe I don't know. There's just got to be these weird little, I guess how far the time frame is if Ahsoka lives that long. But there's going to be some weird connection. We know Baby Yoda can live that long because they live forever. But I think that's what's going to push him back to the Jedi Order and help start this new, because we've got Ezra, who's going to maybe help train from the video games. we know he's still alive. What's his name?
Oh, Cal
Cal.
Kestis.
Yes, he's still alive. So there's so many options out there, and I know everybody. I'm going off on this weird Greg tangent with my world between my head, but there's so many good possibilities what I can see happening there. But I really do see with the things that are going on and the rumors we hear that I don't think we're going to see Mando much further than either the season 4 or after the Mando movie. I think that's going to be kind of like the end of his trail. And again, I'm sorry for everybody who's watching if I upset you with that one, but I think something's going to push Grogu back to the Jedi side of things, and he's going to help with Ezra in building up this new Jedi Order that eventually Rey's going to help build from scratch again. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean
know.
it'll be like you said, there's and it's one of those things. Anytime we talk about like the Bad Batch or the Mandalorian and Boba Fett, things that happen between already established canon, so the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, are always very difficult to navigate, I think, because you're building on something that's already been told and you're trying to tell new stories, but not in such a way that it messes up what's going to happen later on. So, I mean, to your point, it's always going to be interesting during the sequel trilogy. Like, okay, well, where was Mandalore? Why wasn't there an entire planet of Bo-Katan and all these Mandalorians that like showed up to help? Or where was Din Djarin? Where was Grogu?
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to get creative and figure that sort of stuff out. I mean, I think obviously everything you said in a way is plausible. I personally, if I was putting money on it, my guess is you don't have the Mandalorian verse movie without the Mandalorian and Pedro Pascal. Even if not the character, just because the actor is such a big name, I think he's in the movie.
Yeah.
Hopefully by that point they figured out some reason not to wear the stupid helmet anymore, so he can show his face and get what he wants. He probably wants to be, his face out there in the film. I'll be surprised if they do kill him off though to end the story, just for the simple fact because if I'm Disney and I'm Lucasfilm, I'm thinking about, hey, maybe the movie tells the story. There could be comics, there could be books, there could be other things we use this character for if it's not in future movies or future series. But if the character's still alive and still out there, there's always the potential for cameo. There's always ways to bring them back. Somebody else can wear the suit. Brendan Wayne wears the suit most of the time anyway. So it gives them a lot more flexibility. If you think too, like the new Jedi Order stuff that's going to happen post Rise of Skywalker is, I don't know how many years past where we are currently, but at that point, I mean, in a way, Din Djarin's already going to be kind of, getting a little bit more up there in age. And maybe it's like, hey, it's time for me to hang it up. I need to go back to Mandalore and do my thing. Grogu, you're still young enough. You need to go off and train. I think there's other ways they can get Grogu involved in Rey and rebuilding the new Jedi Order without having to outright kill him. Would I be shocked? No, I can see it happening. I just personally think that money talks, I guess, in a way. And it's easier for them to keep a character alive and have more potential to make money off of a character than just outright, whack him in the movie.
Yeah, it's just I can't wait. I wish they would have gave us a little tease though.
Yeah, right. I know.
What's going on.
I want to know. I want to see what are they planning. I mean, I guess the going back to bounty hunting was sort of the tease.
Yeah.
But then it ended with just Grogu playing in the stream, and it's like, well, this feels like, I think Dennis mentioned in one of the comments here, feels like a chapter being closed, but I still think there's more stories and more chapters to be told that are part of the Mandoverse.
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting where we're going to go with this, and who knows? I mean, Dave Filoni obviously is a master of his art, and we'll get something probably pretty cool from it, and hopefully, like I said, if we get a book of Boba Fett and everything like that, it all flows in there and kind of gives us everything. But I was really hoping. I think my biggest hope was that we would have saw Thrawn right at the end. Because the mention of him in that the episode with the Shadow Council. It was, Moff Gideon brings him up, and I was like, oh, we're going to see him. Thrawn's going to get mad because Moff Gideon's trying to take charge of everything. And we're going to see that, the typical, the dark side of things where, hey, you're trying to take my, you're gone. I thought I would see that, but I'm gonna throw this everyone who's still listening to us tonight. What I thought was really interesting with this whole thing was obviously the Moff Gideon clones. Again, I said they threw us really off course with that. But what I thought, and I kind of laugh about a little bit, and again, this is just more of a conversation piece and to get people riled up. But if you notice, something that was interesting was Moff Gideon didn't have his mustache. So was that a clone?
Well, of course, clones
that died from when the ship came in there, and is Moff Gideon still out there somewhere? That would not surprise me, but I just thought it was, for some reason, that was one of the things that dawned on me real quick was like, wait a minute, where's his mustache? And then you see the one in the back of the tank open his eyes, and there was no mustache, and I'm like,
well, because you can't grow facial hair inside of the cloning process.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, most of the clones don't have. I don't think really hardly any of the clones have beards.
Yeah,
maybe some of the clone troopers from the Clone Wars cartoon did, but yeah, no, I didn't think about the cloning thing at first, but when it ended, and I know that Moff Gideon's wearing like the super Beskar suit, and we don't actually see a body. Again, it was really a stretch for me to think, is he really dead? Because again, Moff Gideon was such a really interesting, good bad guy character. The actor is great in the role, Giancarlo. He loves Star Wars. You've interacted with him at conventions. I mean, he loves the role. He's really into it. So I was like, dang, I was kind of disappointed to see him get like killed by his own Imperial cruiser being crashed into his base. I was like, man, that's kind of a crappy way to go out. Like, it wasn't like he got beat in combat. He just got blown up. He was getting the best of two Mandalorians and he got blown up by a spaceship. It's like, man, that's kind of a cheap way to go. But you mean the clone thing brings up a really infinite possibilities of, hey, the Beskar saved him if that was really him. I mean, maybe they don't even know. Maybe like, hey, let's do this, and we'll decide like later on if he's still alive or not. So I would not be surprised if they don't use the clone as like, you thought you got me, but that was just a clone.
Yeah.
I'm still
I don't know. I'm thinking more and more like that wasn't the actual Moff. Because I mean, come on, think about it. Like, what made it like, okay, I'm going to shave my mustache. They save me from the New Republic. Now I'm going to shave my face clean so they don't recognize me. You know?
I mean, maybe Giancarlo had a role, but at the same time, the mustache he had was so small, they didn't have to like, they could have put a fake mustache on him to make it fit. Like it wasn't that hard to have done. It almost makes you think like, was there an intentional purpose behind showing the clones without it and then showing him without it to be like, make you think, is that really him or not?
It made me think. So they did a good job on that. And who knows, they might not even have meant to do that. And
like, oh, whoops, we totally forgot. Like, you just shaved that morning before we shot the scenes. Whoops.
But yeah, it's just, that to me, that was like something that kind of stuck out to me a little bit on there. And, like I thought maybe we were going to find out more about Grogu's origin, which we still kind of didn't. That to me was kind of interesting because I thought maybe Grogu was a clone, like the way this was all going and all that was like, okay, let's see here. That would make sense now that he was testing him and then using, and all that stuff. But we still obviously don't know, what. I'm still going to say Yoda and Yaddle, and they were kind of hiding it. But it's just we see all this stuff and we don't know who wants or how's this going to pan out with Grogu and his family, and it's just so much that's kind of left open. And again, like season 3 was good. We did have those episodes, and again, everybody, I always have to say this because a lot of people jump to conclusions. No, it was not because of the cameos. I did not like that episode. It's just, it was so far off the track that it had no meaning really to this whole storyline, except for like the first 5 minutes or the first couple of minutes, knowing that, the old Night Owls are now working as, kind of bounty hunters. And the last 5 minutes where Bo-Katan fights and wins, so it's like, that episode really kind of just threw me off completely. but at the same time, season 3 had a lot of good points, had a lot of great action, and
Hmm.
it's going to be interesting to see where we go from there, especially with the Mandoverse movie. We got the Ray movie, and I'm actually excited about that. It's a lot of people are like, oh no, Ray's coming back and blah blah blah. I want to see another movie with kind of her in it, because she's supposedly not going to be the main character. Everybody
Hmm.
wants to jump on that real quick. Ray's not supposed to be the main character in this movie. She's kind of like the Luke in the sequels, kind of rebuilding this Jedi Order and stuff there. So that's interesting. Then we're going to go all the way back to like the first Jedi, and so we got a lot of good movies coming out. We got
Hmm.
Andor 2 coming out. And I don't know about you, but the Andor one's been the hardest one for me to get into, because I know they all die. And like that's to me, like, we went season 1, no K2SO, which, like, he's my favorite droid by far. Him and Chopper right up there, and then
Hmm.
R2. So, but we didn't have him, and so I don't know. Like, I love all content. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's hard to kind of, again, we're putting puzzle pieces together, and
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, so obviously we know we have, I guess, as far as stuff we know is going to happen. So we know Bad Batch season 3, final season of that. If anybody's kept up with the writing that Greg and I do over at that hashtag show, I did an article about a week and a half ago about the future of the Bad Batch and potentially tying it all back to Boba Fett. Boba Fett's, he's the Alpha, Omega. She's young enough, same age as Boba Fett, to potentially be introduced in the Mandoverse, whether it's Book of Boba
yeah,
Fett season 2, The Mandalorian season 4, the Mandoverse movie, whatever. I think there's a potential there to kind of bring things full circle a little bit for the Bad Batch and bring those characters, or at least Omega, into um, current time with the Mandoverse stuff. But so we know Ahsoka, we know Skeleton Crew, which I don't expect Skeleton Crew to have much of an impact on the overall
yeah,
Mandoverse sort of stuff. Um, and then the movie. I mean, if you are writing a movie, producing a movie, I'd have to imagine that's still a little ways down the road as far as like when it comes out, like a 2026 sort of a thing potentially
yeah,
that if Ahsoka is the last confirmed Mandoverse thing we have, and it's September or August, whatever, 2023, it's a long time to go. So I do expect there to be, Ahsoka season 2, Mandalorian season 4, potentially Boba Fett season 2 to give us,
yeah.
2 to 3 more seasons worth of content that leads up to that movie. So, like you said, I'm enjoying all the content. There's definitely more to come.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting spot to be in to wonder, hey, this could go any direction. People could die. People may live. People may make it to post Rise of Skywalker and be right with Rey to rebuild the Jedi Order. I mean, there's lots of potential. That's it's a high quality problem to have all this potential out there for Star Wars and not know where it's going to go.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'm excited for it. Like I said, we're getting a lot of content. I mean, it's almost overwhelming how much we're getting. But I also remember going through years of nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and now we finally got, content here to watch. Like it, love it, hate it, whatever. It's out there. And that's the great thing about Star Wars. It doesn't all because it's out there. You can still have an imagination and still make,
Mm-hmm.
yours. I mean, obviously, I just did that, with my predictions for what's going on, and there's just so much out there that I'm really excited. Everybody knows I'm excited for the Ahsoka series. I am really hoping that it lives up to the hype. I'm hoping we get a Book of Boba Fett again, and that it kind of redeems him and then closes his chapter. Like I said, I kind of want him to go out on the note that we know that we remember a Boba Fett, if that makes sense to people. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm hoping for. And let's go into some of the other stories. I'm excited we're getting another Tales of the Jedi. We don't know who that's going to be about, but I'm excited about that one. Um, there's a lot of stuff coming, and it's definitely good for us and for Star Wars content, and just for us to all argue what's going to happen and stuff.
Yeah.
But I will say this, people: if you're going to argue about something, understand the Star Wars timelines and when things take place. Um, I say this because what's that new show? The
Young
cartoon
Jedi's.
Young Jedi. I actually had people tell me that they know how it's going to end with Order 66, but yet these kids are like in the new or the
High
um
Republic.
and the New Republic era, like back in the day, and not even close to Order 66. And I had some people arguing with me about this. So I have to kind of laugh about
Yeah, and
and let
it kind of well, real quick too, kind of piggybacking on that comment about understand the timeline, and also understand that not necessarily all Star Wars content that's being made is supposed to be
for
super
adults.
serious adults. Yeah, for adults. Some of the stuff like Young Jedi is for kids. Skeleton Crew maybe more geared. I think people when they first talk about it, maybe have kind of more of that. I mean, it's about kids. Jude Law is obviously in it, but it's about a younger group. And I think George Lucas, I can't remember the exact quote, but I think he kind of famously once said, like, hey, when he writes Star Wars, he's writing it for kids, basically. Dave Filoni is, a George Lucas disciple. So don't be shocked and surprised that the stuff that Star Wars puts out, stuff that Dave Filoni is involved in, is not Andor type, super gritty, super
Yeah,
adult sort of oriented stuff. I mean, look back to the original movies. As much as we loved them, when we were younger and watching them and stuff, we watched those when we were younger. So we grew up with it. Kids
yeah,
now are watching the original trilogy, or kids from the 90s watch the prequel trilogy. That's what they grew up with. So just understand that not everything's going to be super serious and progress some big overarching storyline. Sometimes it's just an animated little short with some Jedi with lightsabers and kitty robots for the kids to watch and enjoy and
yeah.
fall in love with Star Wars. So just yeah, keep the critiques to yourself. If you don't like it, cool. Just don't watch it. You don't have to tell the whole world about how you think it's so stupid and how it's dumb and tell everybody on social media that yeah, this is terrible. Just don't watch it. Nobody's forcing you to watch it.
Yeah, it cracks me up sometimes, some of the comments, and nobody's perfect, but at the same time, if you're going to argue about something, understand what you're arguing about on that. But guys, I want to thank everybody tonight. We had a great show tonight. I think my voice and throat's about ready to call it quits for me here in a little bit. But always before I go, there's always one thing that's very important to me that I always like to talk about, and again, that's mental health. Again, if you're struggling, having problems, please don't be afraid to reach out to somebody and ask for help. Call 988 if you're feeling down and feel like you're going to hurt yourself or harm yourself, or if you see a friend acting different that they normally do, don't be afraid to reach out to them, ask them how they're doing. You never know that for one could change their lives, and number two, it could save their life. So again, everybody, as a veteran, I have fellow veterans that have taken their lives, brothers, that we lose about 22 veterans a day to suicide, and it's because they didn't reach out, or we didn't see the signs that they were struggling. So again, everybody, it's very important to me. And again, they made it very simple. Dial 9888. Very simple there. That's the suicide prevention hotline. Again, if everybody needs anything, please feel free to ask. I have no problem opening my doors and talking to you. And again, guys, but again, it's awesome to be back. I think my voice is starting to take an exit to the stage right there. But again, I want to thank the hashtag show for giving us the opportunity to write and geek out about the stuff that we love. Again, you can follow Travis at the Indiana Salone and myself at NerdyVet574 on social media. You can follow us at the hashtag show. And I also want to thank our friends over at TRG Toys and Collectibles to help make this show possible for us. Again, check them out at trgtoys.com. You can see that scrolling along down the bottom there. Again, they have great items there, Star Wars, Marvel, you name it. And again, guys, thank you for listening to us and listening to my awesome raspy voice. I cannot wait to talk to you guys again. We're going to talk a little bit here in the future again about collectibles, autographs, a lot of conventions. I know we got a lot of conventions coming up in May between Indiana, Motor City, ICC Con, you name it. There's a lot coming up, and a lot of great things going on. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. But until then, everybody, and this is Travis, Greg, NerdyVet574. Can't wait to talk to you guys again, and always be safe, and may the force be with you.